It's Don here from the board. Thank you for coming along and checking out another one of our videos. So in this video, this is the follow-up to my 5-hour live stream that I did the other week where I hand wired the Seabright 40% keyboard. So let's just check it out and where it's currently at. Now let's turn off that and turn that on. So here it is in its almost built glory. Now I've got grab bag keycaps on it. These are the DCS profile on it, but it's kind of sad that after 3 signature plastic grab bags, I actually don't even have enough of the DCS to completely fill the alphas. So I'm missing the W and the O and an M key there. And I've got some that aren't exact fits. For example, I've got a tab key, which is actually fine, but it's not the right size. And I also don't have the small shift. I don't have a small enter. And I also don't have the 125 or 15 for the slash, which is how I've set it up. And what I've done with my key mapping is I've just got Control Win key, Alt, and then delete page up, page down, just for, I don't know, ease of cycling. And the Geek Hack key up in the corner is what I'm using for backspace. I didn't go with the longer key because without the plate mounted stabilizers, it was a little bit wobbly and it was a bit of a risk. So I just decided to go with the short one, which really isn't an issue, but it does sound really lovely without O-rings and whatnot on these SMKs. So that's without a keycap on it, and then with a keycap on it. So having the keycap on it adds a little bit of sort of echo, bit of resonance on it, and it's quite nice. The other thing that I really like about this is the fact that it's got some serious heft to it. The stainless steel plate and case bottom is excellent. It's very sturdy. It's very sort of, you know, you're just not going to get any flex with it whatsoever. I have already put bump on feet because after I put the screws into it, it was actually a little bit uneven due to just how the screws are and how they sit. Now, I have already flashed this, but I made a mistake in my flashing. I got my dot and comma, my period and the comma the wrong way around, which is why you see the keycaps are actually in this particular orientation that they are. But I figured, you know, I should probably correct that, and that's why I'm going to be doing this video anyway and opening up the case so you can see. Now, during the actual build, Alex had told me that I shouldn't have to melt the switches to get the teensy in place between switches 2 and 3. Turned out not to be the case. I actually did have to melt the corner of the switch, so you'll get to see that in a moment when I open up the case. Now, it uses a very, very fine Allen key to actually undo these, and also because of the placement of these and the size of these little nuts, a pair of pliers is handy. So I'm just going to move my main driver here off to the side a little bit, and then that'll give me a bit of space to crack these babies open. Hopefully. Not actually sure what's happening there, but no, it's definitely coming off. Now, putting it back together was a bit of a pain, and I didn't really want to take it apart, but because I made that mistake in the flashing, you know, it's the price that I am currently paying. So, yeah. I haven't done these up super duper tight, but, you know, I don't really think that it's necessary because they hold well, and now that I've got the bump-ons on, it also means that they're not really going to be in direct contact, so there's less chance of vibrations going anywhere, causing components to come loose. But if they do come loose and you sort of lose one of the nuts, well, it would be an absolute pain to find because they are so tiny. Now, if I know that Alex had actually done the group buy and had created the Campine, which I believe is the 60% version of the stainless steel case. If there was ever any interest in producing a full size, I'll tell you right now, I would jump on it. And yes, hand wiring a full size would be a nightmare for some people, including myself, but to have this stainless steel case and this weight behind it, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Now, so let's just do a straight clean lift. There we go. There is how the keyboard looks. And in this corner, if I just pop that off, let's see, come on. Are you gonna come into focus? There we go. You'll see how I've melted the corner of 11 and 10. I've just basically put the soldering iron straight to it and just moved it back and forth and melted it down and took away the excess, so that I can actually get that to sit flush, because without it, it was actually pushing up the switches as well as not getting low enough to close the case. So I suppose I probably should have programmed into it a soft reset switch, but I didn't. If I had the soft reset, then I could have just flashed it with the soft reset rather than having to take it apart. But as you saw, it was really just a minute and a half to undo those screws. Now if I pop over to my other screen, that way, we can have a look at how the key map was done. So right hand monitor, there we go. So I've just got a little teensy window open there for when I'm reflashing, and this is actually the matrix of how I wired it, and it's a little bit different to probably a standard in that you'll notice that there's a single column and row pin over here just by its lonesome, which is in fact the backspace key up there in the corner, but then everything else goes through. This actually confused me because even though I had previously used this to flash other devices, it was never a hand wired situation, and therefore some of the arrangements of the actual the connections between the rows and the columns were throwing me off. But it took me, I don't know, probably 15 minutes to figure out what the heck I was doing with this and how this rows and matrix kind of thing worked. And then once I figured that out, it was actually relatively straightforward to set up the actual key map. So the pins also, the actual orientation of the pins matches exactly how I've soldered it, which is following the guide that Alex had given me during the actual build process. So, and that worked beautifully, no issues there whatsoever. And then of course, here is my dodgy key map. So I've put escape tab shift, control, win key, alt, space, delete, page up, page down, backspace, enter, and then slash, because you know, if this is really just casual typing, but if you want to type in say like a web address, then you probably want to have slashes and things like that. You'll notice I have not put a second layer on this. I'm really bad at remembering layers, so I just haven't for the purposes of this very simple keyboard. You know, if I was honestly going to be traveling with a 40%, I would probably take the Vortex core, and with the double shot multi-printed layers on the actual keycap, then that would be perfect. Now, what I've done incorrectly is this is not period, this is actually comma. So I should switch that over to the comma, and then this one is actually not the comma, but it's actually the dot. There you go. So I don't have any macros, I don't need to worry about setting like that. The bootloader, I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm going to save my configuration, and it's going to be onto my desktop there. So just going to save that on top of the old one. Yes, going to replace that, and then I'm going to do the compile. So let's download the hex. We got to wait for it to do its thing. There it is, and we're going to save as hex 1. Now we're going to find my teensy, and let's open the hex file, which is the Seabright 1 hex now, which is that one. We're going to open it. Now we're going to plug in the actual teensy itself. Okay, so if I, where's my mouse gone? There we go. So I've got that plugged in, and then of course I need to hit the reset button, but I've lost my teensy window. So I'm going to press the reset button and back onto the right monitor. you'll see it's got the program and the reboot button. So I think let's program it. So it's erasing, it's putting it on, and let's reboot. It says reboot OK. Fantastic. Now let's open Notepad. Notepad, drag it over to the other side. Let's flip the keyboard around and the correct keys match. So that is fantastic, and everything else is working as intended. And there you go. That is the Seabright. Now, I'm just going to close off the right monitor because we don't need to look at that at the moment. In order to actually mount this back in the case, it was a bit of a pain, and I had to use an actual cable plugged in it so I could orientate it correctly. So let's just get the case, flip it back around, the connector into place, make sure all the wires are in and not going to get pinched. Alright, so, and then vertically so we can make sure that there's plenty of gap space for any large weird size connectors. That looks good. And then we're going to run a one of these screws, one of these bolts through it. If I can get it positioned correctly. Come on. It's a bit harder to do this under the camera escape rather than holding it up to myself. Well, now that that's actually in place, I should be able to unjack that, and you'll see there's plenty of gap and clearance around that, and then I should be able to just flip that around. There we go. So I've got one in. Just try and maintain pressure on the whole board. Ah, it's moved. This is probably the fiddliest part actually of putting this thing together, is getting these bloody screws into it. So I'm going to swap hands there, left hand, right hand, and the reason is because I want to be able to have the nut in my left hand to hold against the screw, assuming I can even get one to stay on my fingertip. There we go. Bloody nightmare. And then of course with my Allen key, let's give it a backspin so it gets into the right spot. Not going to cross thread it, and then forward it goes. Alright. Now of course, because that was all jiggling around everything, I don't know if my socket's gone anywhere. No, it's it seems to be sitting okay. So let's do the opposite corner. Come on. You can do it. There we go. That should help keep most of everything in position. I appreciate the design, but having these really small screws, is, for people who have fat fingers, is unpleasant. It is so unpleasant. Alright, so let's turn it backwards. There we go. And then let's go forwards. Is that on? Nope. Now if you lose one of these, it is an unpleasant experience, because you're going to have a heck of a time trying to find them again. I may have to de-keycap. There we go. Take that keycap off. Alex, why are you doing this to me? Can't perform, of course, now that I'm under pressure while I'm recording. But performance anxiety. Alright, there we go. Now that's in. So I'm not going to fully tighten them up yet with the pliers until I get them all in, because that's a rookie mistake. Now, you may have noticed that I'm very careful in pulling these keycaps off, only because I have not glued any of these switches in. When I popped them in, they clicked in quite nicely, but as I discovered when I was trying to mount the actual Teensy, it is actually possible to push these switches out. Now, I could have gone in with the glue gun and actually glued them down some, but then I didn't really want to mess with it any further than I had to. And well, once these keycaps are on it, I don't really have a lot of reason to change them, especially because they're grab bag keycaps. So I don't anticipate I'm going to be take them on and off on a regular basis unless if I'm going to reflash, which is probably not going to be super often. It's a fun little keyboard. It's definitely a good protective keyboard if you want to go out and beat zombies with a handheld keyboard. There we go. That's the four corners in, and then we just have the top and middle. I don't know if it was absolutely necessary to have these middle screws, bolts for the top and bottom middle. It's nice having the extra security, but because it's stainless steel and it's very strong and very stiff already, probably a little bit on the unnecessary side, but still good to have. Okay, so looks like I need to take these two keycaps off. There we go. In, and then so you'll see that maybe you won't see it very easily. Let's see if I can get the camera to focus on that. So if I try and pull that, see how the switch is actually lifting off the plate. So you kind of have to be very careful when you do that. These keycaps aren't exactly the stiffest of holding, so it's really showing that yeah, if you are going to build one of these, you probably should think a little bit about if you're going to glue them in or not. But I think next time I build one for a hand wire, I probably will hot glue gun them in, of course, and that's just going to add even more time. Ooh, that was really lucky. More time to the actual build process, but that's okay because it's part of what we do, what we enjoy building these things for. Rightio. So now that they're in, I'm going to get my pliers, and it'll just allow me to give them a little bit more of a tightening on these nuts. Now note that I'm using the long end, so I'm not actually going to be over torquing these and stripping them. I'm just giving them a little bit of an extra turn just to help secure them so they're not likely to come off. So just spinning them down and a little bit of a turn. Now, of course, I don't have a torque wrench or anything on me, which would allow me to set a very specific torque on it, but I actually don't even know what that specific torque value would be on these. That would be a good amount. But I tend to find that when you put them in and you give them a tighten with the long ways, when the actual Allen key starts to flex and rotate, you've pretty much hit a good tightness, because, well, you probably don't want to really go tightening too far past that. That's it. We're done. So there she is. Put my spacebar back on. Put my backspace back on. Put my skip key back on. Put my T and my Y. Thank you very much. There you go. There is my Seabright. All done, programmed, flashed, and good to go. Good to go. So thank you very much once again to BusGamer from Idea23 for actually sending me this kit to build. Thank you to the guys down in Victoria for actually getting me these SMKs as well to try. I do quite like them. A little bit on the light side, but you know, it makes for easy lightweight typing. Nothing spectacular, no fatigue. And yeah, and thank you for Alex and everyone else who was actually in the stream helping me build and put this baby together. So I really appreciate that. So there you go. Seabright, done, dusted, forever. Another one to add to my collection. Righty, so thanks very much for coming along and checking out the video. Of course, hit like, hit share, leave your comments below if you have anything you wanted to say, or just to say hello. So as always, until next time, happy clacking.